Working with different views in Excel. I've got the budget file open here, and you can see that we cannot see or view all of the columns or the rows in this spreadsheet. You might need to just simply maximize so that it readjusts the sizing of the window. So all I did was go to the top right hand corner of the window and I maximized. It wasn't quite maximized, so I clicked here. Down at the bottom right hand corner of my window I have a zoom slider. So when I'm pointing here, I've got zoom. When I position my mouse on top of the middle portion here, right on this tab, I can click so that when I'm going to the left, my zoom is smaller, and when I go to the right, my zoom is larger. So if I position myself, let's say at 86%, then I can see as much content as possible on the screen. To the left of the zoom slider is the zoom command here, and when I click on it, it takes me to the zoom dialog box. So I can work with any one of these radio buttons that are default choices, or choices that, pardon me, have been set up. And otherwise I can customize my zoom if I want and just simply type in any number here. Though there is a maximum, if I type in 500, it says the number must be between 10 and 400. So I'll type in 400 so you can see how large your view can be. It's pretty large, I know. When you print, this view will not be printed as such. In other words, you don't have to worry that if I printed right now, or when you print it right now, that it would take this content and make it as large as you see here on the screen. This is just for viewing purposes only. I'm going to take us back to 100%. So this time I'm going to go on the View tab on the ribbon, and in the Zoom group, click on 100%. It readjusts the screen, so now what you see is what you get when you print, in that if your zoom is 100%, expect the content to be as large as you see on the screen. When you scroll over to the right here, so I'm going to use the horizontal scroll bar here, right above the zoom slider, you'll see that as I'm scrolling, I'm losing my columns A and so on, and I cannot see the labels or headings in the left-hand portion of my spreadsheet. It's smart to set up a freeze of the columns and or rows that you wish to have on your screen at all times when you are scrolling from left to right or up or down. When I position my active cell here in B4, you need to know that whatever to the left of this active cell will be frozen once I complete the action for freeze, and the cells above, in other words the rows above where my active cell is, rows 1, 2, and 3, will be frozen. Over on that View tab, and this time in the Window group, I'm going to click on Freeze Panes. And when I click here, it offers up 3 choices. The first choice is what I want to pick at this instant. Because I've already positioned my active cell where I want the column and the rows to be frozen, I'm going to click on Freeze Panes. As soon as I do that, you can see a thick border to the left of the active cell and above. When I scroll to the right, for example, my column A is frozen. It's anchored so that I can continue to view it as I'm looking at its corresponding data. When I scroll down, you can see how rows 1, 2, and 3 are frozen, so I can see the data in rows 1, 2, and 3. Now the data is frozen, in other words the column and rows are frozen, but that's not to say they're protected. I still can type in here and modify the data if I wish to do so. When I go back to Freeze Panes, you can see the first choice now reads Unfreeze Panes, whereas before it was Freeze. So I'm going to click here, and now I've got full access, or pardon me, when I'm scrolling, I will be able to have my column A scroll over as I'm scrolling and my rows 1, 2, and 3. Watch what happens when I choose Freeze Panes yet again, and then I say Freeze Top Row. Indeed, the top row is frozen. So when I'm scrolling, Sparkle Cleaning Limited will always be in view. If I freeze first column, you'll see how it immediately takes out the freeze from the first row and it freezes the first column. It did not matter where I was positioned inside of the sheet. I could have been in A, which I was somewhere in the column to start off with, or I could have been anywhere in the spreadsheet, and it certainly knows column A is the first column. But notice how I can't have both a freeze on column A and row 1 at the same time in any one of these two choices, using any one of these two choices. The only way I could do that is firstly unfreeze panes, and if I wanted to for some reason, I could have my row 1 and column A frozen. I'd have to click yes in B2. Split behaves similar to freeze panes, but they do behave a little bit differently as well. I'm going to click on split, and when I do so, you can see according to where my active cell is, it now has a boundary to the left and above my active cell. I can have 2 or 4 panes that can view my content at the same time. The key is you need to scroll using any one of these scroll bars. When I want to unsplit, I can do one of two things. I can certainly go back up to this window group and hit split, or I can take my 4 panes and turn it back to 2 by simply dragging one of the boundaries off to the left here, and then you can see how I have a boundary between these two, and maybe I just want to compare 2 portions. Or I can drag this split all the way down, and it takes the split right off. If you want to reintroduce a split, you can take your cursor, or your mouse, pardon me, above the vertical scroll bar, and right above the up arrow there's a little edge here, and it's actually our split ready to happen. So I can drag down here, and then over on the right hand side of my horizontal scroll bar I've got that same character, or pardon me, symbol, and I can put my mouse on it and drag over, and now I've reintroduced a split. Back on the View tab on the ribbon, I'd like you to focus in on the Workbook Views group. We've got Normal, Page Layout, Page Break Preview, Custom Views, and Full Screen. I'm going to show you what Page Layout View looks like. So Normal's our default. When we hit Page Layout, you can see that we can still view our content. We can still edit, enter, format any of our cells, but we also have rulers to show us the positioning of where our cells are, and we can also create a header, and we can see in here we can click to add a header, and if we scroll down here we can see that it says click to add footer. I'll get to how to create a header and footer in just a few minutes. But first I'd like to take us back to Workbook Views and click on Page Break Preview. When you do that, it will probably come up with a welcome dialog box. Just click OK. The idea here in this view for Page Break Preview is to see how much content is actually going to appear on our pages. Yes, I know you can go to Print Preview to see that, but this is a handy view for you to see right on the screen which is your page 1 and which is your page 2. Don't worry, these characters here aren't going to actually appear in your print. This is just for our Page Break Preview. The last view I'm going to show you is Full Screen. And when we click on Full Screen, we're not distracted by any of the ribbon choices or any of the outer edge choices of the previous window. So we get a full effect of how much content is going to appear on which pages. To return back to the previous view, we simply press Escape to cancel. And remember, that's that ESC key at the top left-hand corner of our keyboard. So it takes us back to Page Break Preview. We can go back to Normal View or even Page Layout View by using shortcuts here on our status bar. So to the left of the Zoom slider and the Zoom command, we'll find 3 commands. The last one is in orange right now, and it's telling us that that one is active, which is of course our Page Break Preview. The middle one is Page Layout, and the first one is Normal. Let's go to Page Layout so that we can create a header When I click Header here on Click to Add Header, you can see our ribbon offers up now Header and Footer Tools Design. The navigation grouping is probably what you want to focus in on first, because perhaps you might have wished to have gone to Footer instead. So instead of scrolling down here to find the Footer area, you can simply click on Go to Footer, and now it takes you to the footer. When we go to Header and Footer Elements, page number is the first command here in this grouping. When I click on it, a code comes up. The cursor tells us that we can type or continue on with another code here. I'm going to type in the word of, so that where it says ampersand and in square brackets page, let's say the number 1 will come up when we're out of our Header and Footer Tools design, and then literally you'll see the word of, and then beside it you want the total number of pages. So I'm going to go back here to Header and Footer Tools, Header and Footer Elements, and click on Number of Pages. A different command comes up, quite similar to the first one, but this one has an S at the back end of the word page. Once I click, let's say, to another cell, you can see one of 2 comes up. If I want to edit the footer, I simply go back and click here, because maybe I wanted to type in page, literally the word page, so that it's going to read page 1 of 2. And when I click back onto another cell, it takes me out of Header and Footer Tools, and it does say page 1 of 2. I'm going to return to Normal View and take advantage of the Normal View command shortcut here on the status bar.